The morning sun had barely risen over the dusty range at Camp Pendleton, yet the air already carried the weight of frustration. A group of Marine snipers, men known for their unshakable focus and steady hands, stood in silence, their faces drawn tight. The target, set at an unforgiving distance beyond 1,000 yards, seemed to mock them. Each shot they fired fell short or drifted off course, the faint puff of dust in the distance signaling another miss. For men whose pride rested on precision, every miss felt like an insult. The whispers between them grew quiet, replaced by the metallic clatter of bolts and the low murmur of doubt. It wasn't supposed to be this difficult. These were elite shooters, trained for months under some of the most grueling conditions in the world. They had made shots in wind, in rain, under fire, and through exhaustion. But today, something was off, something none of them could quite put a finger on. The range stretched out like a desert, the air shimmering with heat, and a faint crosswind teased the tall grass. It was a perfect day for shooting by all technical standards, but still, the bullets refused to find their mark. Their instructor, Gunnery Sergeant Briggs, watched through his spotting scope, jaw clenched tight. He was a man carved from decades of service, his skin darkened by sun and stress. "Adjust your elevation, O'Reilly," he barked, but even as he said it, he knew the young sniper's adjustment wouldn't make a difference. They had already accounted for every variable: wind speed, humidity, bullet drop, even the mirage effect. Yet the results remained the same: failure. "Sir," one of the snipers finally muttered, breaking the uneasy silence, "maybe the scope's off. Or the barrel." Briggs shot him a glare that could have cracked glass. "The equipment's fine, Corporal. The problem ain't the rifle." He turned his gaze back downrange, his own reflection faintly visible in the glass of the spotting scope. Inside, a question gnawed at him: what was he missing? Behind the line of shooters, a handful of instructors and observers stood with crossed arms. Among them was a man who didn't wear the uniform anymore. His faded jeans, worn boots, and olive drab jacket marked him as an outsider, though the way he carried himself, shoulders squared, chin steady, told anyone paying attention that he had once belonged here. His name was Jack Harlow. To most of the Marines on the range, he was just a civilian consultant, a retired guy, brought in for a few weeks to help recalibrate their long-range training program. But to those who knew his story, Jack wasn't just another veteran. He had once been one of the best snipers in the Corps, a legend whispered about in hushed tones among the younger men. A man who had made a mile-long shot in Helmand Province, saving an entire patrol from ambush. A man who walked away from service not because he couldn't handle it, but because life demanded something more of him, a daughter who needed her father after her mother's death. Jack had been standing in the back for over an hour, watching silently, hands in his pockets. He hadn't said a word. Every miss told him something: the rhythm of their breathing, the micro-flinches before the trigger break, the way the barrels recoiled. He read them the way a mechanic reads an engine, not with judgment, but with understanding. "Mind if I take a look?" he finally said, his voice low but cutting through the murmurs. Briggs turned, half relieved and half defensive. "Be my guest. Maybe you can see what I'm missing." Jack stepped forward, his boots crunching in the gravel. The snipers shifted, giving him space, though a few exchanged wary glances. Outsiders didn't usually get this close to the line. He knelt beside one of the rifles, scanning the setup. The gun was a Macmillan TAC 338, pristine and deadly accurate, at least, it should have been. He adjusted the scope slightly, then looked downrange through it. His breath slowed. "Winds shifting," he murmured. "Quarter value from 9 o'clock, maybe 2 miles an hour. Enough to throw you an inch at this distance." One of the younger Marines, his face still sharp with youth and pride, frowned. "Sir, we compensated for wind. Checked it with the Kestrel." Jack didn't look up. "The Kestrel doesn't feel the wind, son. You do. You're trusting the tool, not your instincts." He set the rifle down gently and straightened. "You're overthinking it." Briggs folded his arms, watching closely. He'd heard of Jack's methods before, half intuition, half science, but he'd never seen them up close. Jack motioned toward the target. "You're all so focused on the data that you've forgotten the shot is a living thing. The air moves, the light bends, your heartbeat shifts the world by half a breath." He paused, his eyes narrowing on the horizon. "You don't shoot the target, you shoot the space between you and it." The snipers exchanged uncertain looks. They'd heard philosophical talk before, but none of it had ever put rounds on target. Still, there was something in Jack's tone, steady, calm, unshakable, that made them listen. He picked up the rifle again, settling into the prone position. Every movement was deliberate, quiet. He inhaled, held the breath, then let it out slowly. The world seemed to shrink around him. No chatter, no wind, no noise, just distance and purpose. His finger found the trigger, barely touching it, a whisper of pressure. The shot cracked. A second later, the spotter called out, astonished, dead center. For a moment, no one spoke. The echo of the rifle faded into silence. The Marines stood frozen, processing what had just happened. Jack rolled his shoulder, setting the rifle aside like it was nothing. Sometimes, he said, brushing dust from his sleeve, it's not about aiming harder. It's about letting the shot happen. Briggs exhaled, a small smile breaking the edge of his stern expression. Still got it, Harlow. Jack gave a half smile in return, the kind that didn't quite reach his eyes. You don't lose it, you just forget what it feels like until the moment reminds you. Behind him, the younger Marines were already whispering, some in awe, some in disbelief. A few wanted to try again immediately. The mood had shifted. What had felt like defeat now felt like challenge. Jack started to step back, but Briggs stopped him with a hand on his arm. Stick around, he said. They could use a little of whatever that was. Jack nodded, though part of him hesitated. He hadn't come here to prove anything. He had come because a friend had asked a favor, and because somewhere between the chaos of civilian life and raising his daughter, he missed this, the discipline, the silence, the purpose. As the snipers returned to their positions, he moved quietly among them, offering small corrections, adjusting elbows, changing breathing rhythms, showing them how to read the mirage with their bare eyes instead of relying on gadgets. One by one, their shots began to tighten. The air filled again with the sharp, rhythmic sound of precision. For the first time that morning, the range felt alive again, not with frustration, but with focus. And though none of the Marines said it out loud, every one of them knew that something had shifted the moment Jack took the shot. It wasn't just about hitting the target. It was about remembering what made them Marines in the first place, the discipline, the trust, the instinct that no technology could ever replace. And for Jack, it was about something quieter, something only he would admit to himself as he watched another round strike the bullseye. He had come back to the range thinking he was just a visitor. But standing there, surrounded by the echo of rifle fire and the rising confidence of the next generation, Jack realized the truth: he had never really left.